busy last weekend. We were out in the Midwest, specifically Des Moines, Iowa. And they call that the Midwest, but I call it the Sun Belt. I call it the hottest place on earth. And when you're wearing a suit and a tie, it's really hot. The average temperature was 99 degrees. Yes, the wedding ceremony was outside. In the beautiful sunshine, in the pouring sweat. But it was a beautiful day. Our second son married his longtime sweetheart. They've been together for 9 or 10 years, even at the young age they are, and it certainly was a beautiful ceremony. There was one specific part of the wedding ceremony that I want to try and recapture for you. Pastor Terry, who is my son and daughter-in-law's pastor, officiated at the wedding. And after they said the wedding vows, he asked them to come back to a table and perform what is called the salt ceremony. Now, some of you may have seen this before, but it rather intrigued me, and I thought it was really appropriate for us to recapture for today. So after the vows, my son Evan and his wife Nicole, they each had their own glass jar of white table salt. And together, simultaneously, they poured their salt into a clear glass vase. And as the salt was being poured in, Pastor Terry told us about the union of a marriage. And how when the salt is poured together, you can't tell where the salt came from. You don't know if it came from Evan or if it came from Nicole, or their experiences, their life happenings, their families. And that once it was all poured together in, not only could you not see any difference, but you couldn't separate the grains because you didn't know which was which. And the merger created something new. A blessing upon God to create a brand new thing. Not him, not her, but the three of them together with God. Union of marriage is a merger. A merger is where one thing flows into something else, and as it is gradually stirred together, it becomes something brand new. It's not A or B, it's a brand new thing. The individual parts cannot be distinguished from each other, and they can never be separated again. Merging reminds me of something that we see in this part of the region all summer long. My wife and I have this tradition when we get up in the morning, we have a cup of coffee, and we watch some of the news, and we get to see the aerial shots of the traffic that's coming to the shore. And as they show the map, there's all these individual cars and roads that are coming into what we call the expressway, but it's anything but express. And they merge. They merge into one line of traffic that's completely indistinguishable from one another. All of the cars come together and join as one. Now, I didn't specifically plan it this way. When we do our worship series calendar, we do it, sometimes weeks or months in advance. But today, the road sign that we're going to be talking about is merge. I want to draw your attention to this sign merge because it's pretty important as to what kind of sign it is. It's not a construction sign. It's not a posted regulation sign. It's a caution sign. God throws this sign up for us in our life and says, caution, there are mergers that are coming in your life. Now, what kind of mergers is he talking about? He's talking about relational mergers that happen to us as we journey down the road of life. If you think about it, you have quite a few relational mergers that happen to you. From the very beginning, we start with siblings and parents, and we learn how to live together and grow together. Then we talk about roommates and childhood friends, and we talk about marriage and possibly even children. We talk about adult friends and coworkers, and perhaps in later years we talk about caring for a relative or a friend. And so we often think of these relational mergers as categories. You know, we don't think about them like a union and a marriage. We think of them more like, well, I have this relationship with my spouse. I have this relationship with my friend. I have this relationship with my coworker. I have this relationship with my neighbor or an acquaintance or someone who knows someone who knows someone. And we treat each relationship differently. We categorize them. But God doesn't do that. God doesn't see our relationships with other human beings as categories. He sees them in light of our duty, our calling. He sees them as our way to respond in the way that He responds to us, with love. He then asks us to treat these relationship mergers just as He treats us. And He describes it a couple of different ways in His Word. In the Gospel of John, in chapter 15, Jesus talks about it this way. He says, "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me." The Apostle Paul wrote it this way in a letter to the Galatians in chapter 2. He says, "I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me." Also in the Gospel of John, Jesus says these words. He's trying to teach His disciples about what's going to happen in this world and what He's expecting of them. And He says to them, "On that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you." It's the perfect merger that God desires for each and every one of us. A blending, if you will, into our Creator. A blending that's so well mixed that we can no longer be distinguished. We don't know where God ends and where we begin. And so like that salt that was in that clear vase, you can't separate them once the merger happens. But then again, back here on earth, our relationships, as they begin to blossom wherever they are, whether it's personal or private or at work or wherever these relationships begin, we tend to have a couple of inclinations. Sometimes we just go with the flow and we just let whatever happens, happens. Some will push a relationship real hard and they'll want it to be ironclad and they'll have huge demands and great expectations upon them. Others will avoid them at all costs. It's too scary, too risky, too demanding, and I'd have to be too vulnerable to have a friendship or a relationship. But God says no matter what you're trying to do, and believe me, you're trying to avoid life or you're trying to control life, there's one thing that we need to understand. That the road we are journeying on is God's road. It is His plan. And you and I are just travelers on that road. And as travelers, we need to watch out for these signs. And He throws up the sign and it says, "Merge, caution. Mergers are coming." And so if that's the case, what does God have to say about this? What are we supposed to do when He says, "Watch out for the merge"? Well, the first thing He says, merging takes preparing. That's why the sign goes up. You've got time to get ready for that merge. When we're driving around, particularly this time of the year, have you ever tried to drive around construction? Now, I don't mean just like in the side of it. I mean, you take a right and you go down the street and you make a left and you go down the street and make another left and you think you're smarter because you're going to go all the way around the block to avoid it. Or when you're driving along and you see traffic starting to build up, and so because you're a local, you know a better way to go. Anybody here drive on West Jersey Avenue as opposed to the Black Horse Pike? We're always trying to find ways around merging. But it doesn't always work that way. I don't know if you're like me, but I tend to get to the other end of my crafty little shortcut way of getting around, and I look up and there in front of me is the car that was behind me. God says, warning, mergers are going to happen. You can't avoid them. We need to be preparing for them. And so whether we cross paths with someone, or we live with someone, or we work with someone, mergers are going to happen. This is how I can guarantee you it's going to happen. In the very first book of the Bible, called Genesis, chapter 2, he says this: "Then the Lord God said, 'It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper as his partner.'" From the very beginning of creation, God created more than one of you. And he created you to be together, to help one another, to be what his word calls a partner, a relationship with one another. And so God says it takes preparing, because in the book of wisdom he says this: good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but shortcuts lead to poverty. There's no way around it. We need to do the good work before we get to the merge. And this is what he says in Psalms chapter 37. "Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." That's what we should be doing first and foremost in our lives. Seeking the Lord first. The first merger we should ever have is between us and God. The blending together of him and us. Because this is what happens to us. We get wrapped up in our world, don't we? We get concerned with how other people think about us and feel about us. We get concerned with how we're treating one another and if everything is on the same page. And then when we get into a really great relationship, then we start lifting it up, and it's all we can think about, and it's all we can do, and it's the best thing in the world. And before you know it, we've pushed God right out of the picture. We've created an idol about our spouse, or our girlfriend, or our parents, or our friends, or whoever we're having this relationship with, even if we're trying to get something out of it, like with a boss or someone who's going to do us better in the world. And the next thing you know, God is completely out of the picture. Caution sign says, hold up, be prepared. Focus on the very first merge we should ever have, and that is with God first. Because if you take delight in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. And there will be blessings upon blessings in our life. Merging takes preparing, but it also takes yielding. I don't know if you know this. When I drive around, it becomes very apparent to me that most people don't. But the merging traffic sign actually comes with instructions. Did you know that? You're supposed to actually drive all the way to the point of the merge. And there you're supposed to alternate going in the same direction of the traffic. I don't know about you, but when I come to a merge, it's usually a mile and a half back. Everybody's all lined up. And then there's that one guy. You know, he drives along the side of everybody who's in the line. And what do we do to that guy? We cut him off, don't we? We start swerving out in front of them, pushing them into the guardrail, not in front of me! Get in line! And the line starts back there! Merging says, no, it takes yielding. There are going to be times in your life when you have a relationship that requires us to maybe let them go first. Maybe we have to let them have the accolades first. Maybe we have to allow them to be in the spotlight first. Maybe they need to receive the apology first. We have to yield before we can start merging and get to that point. And everything flows smoothly if we're able to follow that. Jesus Christ made the greatest merge ever by yielding himself to us. By giving himself up completely and letting us go first. So that you and I now have the opportunity to merge together with God and become one blended, beautiful new thing. There's a story of the 2000 Olympic Games that were held in Sydney. It's story of two best friends. They were best friends, but they were also competitors. They competed in Taekwondo together, and they were both trying to get into the Olympics. As the luck of the draw would have it, they were on different sides of the bracket, if you will, until it came to the very last match to determine who would go on to the Olympics. Well, as luck would have it, Kathy Poe and Esther Kim, these female Taekwondo competitors, were head to head. They were also best friends. Now, Kathy had a little problem. You see, she had pulled her knee in such a way in her last match that she was pretty sure it wasn't good for her to have this match. And so she was all ready to bow out and quit. Her best friend, Esther Kim, stepped up to the mat and forfeited. All for her best friend. She turned to her and she said, "You will have the gold medal around your neck in Sydney. I will always have the gold medal in my heart of our friendship." There are other ways for you and I to be champions in the world. We need to yield so that we can merge together. So merging does take preparing, it takes yielding, and it also gives us great lessons of learning. It teaches us so much about ourselves and how we can make ourselves so much better. Now, it may sound odd. How does merging with someone in a relationship help me to understand myself better? And I think one way to look at it is to think of the opposite. Every time you fail to merge a relationship in life, what does that say about you? When you fail to let someone else get in front of you, when you fail to give up something you have for someone else's in need, every time that we fail to merge, what does that say about us? Are we simply too busy? Have we placed other things in front of us as more important than the people around us? Are we focusing more on the person in the mirror than the one standing next to us? What does it say about us when we fail to merge? And what does it say about us when we do merge? When we do those things in life to bring ourselves together? Do you see Christ? Do you see Christ being reflected through you when you are able to do those things? Does the world see a new blended you? With you in Christ and Christ in you. You know, we learn a lot about ourselves during our relationship mergers. The Book of Wisdom says this in chapter 27. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. That's a merger. When you and I build each other up. When I let you and you let me. When I give you and you give me. Merging takes preparing, it takes yielding, and it gives us a lot of learning. And it's what God is doing in this world all around us and through us. There's a story of a young man by the name of Paul Erskine. Paul was in a confirmation class in a United Methodist Church. And at the end of the class, all children are asked if they're ready to make that step. They've taken the class, and now are they ready to assume the responsibilities of joining the community of faith? Paul made the very adult decision and said no. He wasn't. Years later, when Paul made that decision that he was finally ready to accept that responsibility and join the community of faith, he stood up and he began the worship service this way. These are his words. Once upon a time, I saw worship as a place that I went to meet God. Like going to a place where God was there waiting for me and all I had to do was show up. Which is hard enough, It's hard showing up and being genuinely present. However, over time, I've come to understand that it's not all that is required. In fact, the strength of a communal worship is that we together, and hopefully each and every one of us, brings God with us as we come together. And then the worship experience becomes an assembly of the multitudes. It becomes an experience of biblical proportions. I love what Paul had to say and the very mature realization that he had, that God is not somewhere else waiting for you to show up there. God is already with you. He's already merged with you. He walks with you every day like a best friend, like a BFF. Like, you can't get away from him. And yet when we come together and worship on Sunday, each one of us brings that with us. And then it's the multitude of all of those who have gathered that becomes an experience, in Paul's words, of biblical proportion. Merging with God does that. You know, when Jesus was in prayer, just before he was turned over to the authorities, he was gathered with the disciples just outside of the garden. And he looked up to the heavens and he began to pray for all of the men and the women who were gathered there. And he was trying to explain to them what was about to happen, and they just weren't quite understanding it. In the Gospel of John, Jesus prays this: "My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them glory that you have given to me, so that they may be one and we may all be one, I in them and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me, and that I have loved them, even as you have loved me." Brothers and sisters, we can't merge together in this world with other human beings until we've merged together with God, and until we become one with him. Merging takes preparing, it takes yielding, and it gives us lots of learning to do. And it brightens this world in so many ways. And hopefully one day all of the salt will be mixed together, and there will be no way to ever separate us again. Amen.